In today's video, we're going to be discussing the lab based on the percent water and hydrated salt. To do the lab, we're going to need a few pieces of instrumentation. First off is going to be a crucible and a cover. You're going to need crucible tongs, a piece of wire gauze, a Bunsen burner with the striker, so we can turn it on. And lastly, we'll need a ring stand with a clay triangle that the crucible will sit on. The setup of the lab should be as following. Ring stand with wire triangle with the crucible and cover on top. Bunsen burner will sit right underneath the crucible and the crucible cover. To start the lab, be sure that your crucible and crucible cover are free of chips or fissures, which may cause the crucible to crack when heating it during the experiment. Step number 1 is to heat the crucible to clean it for approximately 5 minutes with a strong Bunsen burner flame. Once the 5 minutes are over, place the crucible onto the wire gauze to cool. Remember, hot crucibles look like cold crucibles, so always use your crucible tongs from here on out in the lab to prevent burning your hands. Once the crucible is cool, you're going to want to measure the mass of the crucible and the crucible lid to the nearest 0.001 gram. Remember to do this. Okay. We'll first tare the balance. Get out our crucible. Again, using crucible tongs. And the crucible cover. You'll want to record this number in your lab manual. Next, you're going to want to weigh out no more than 3 grams of your unknown hydrated salt. Be sure to record which unknown hydrated salts you have before moving on. Remember, it does not have to be exactly 3 grams, but be sure that you write down the amount of hydrated salt that you obtained from the bottle. Once you've massed out your hydrated salt, go ahead and add it into your crucible, and you'll then take the mass of the hydrated salt the crucible and the crucible cover, and you'll use this information to calculate the amount of hydrated salt you've added. Again, be sure to use the crucible tongs to do this. Once you've massed out your hydrated salt and placed it into your crucible, you want to replace the crucible back onto the clay triangle. You want to start your Bunsen burner with a hot flame, and you want to heat your hydrated salt. Notice that the cap of the crucible is on the crucible, but it has room for gases to escape should they be formed. Okay? It's crucial that you have the cap of the crucible not completely covering the crucible itself. You'll heat this for approximately 10 minutes, on which time you will then let the crucible cool back to room temperature. After heating the crucible and letting it cool for 10 minutes, you can replace the lid on top of the crucible. Take the crucible off the clay triangle. And mass it once again. Again, remember to tare the balance. And add the crucible. The crucible cover. And now hopefully your anhydrous salt. Remember, anhydrous means it does not have any water in it. As when we did the heating process, right, water was driven off of the hydrated salts, okay, to produce the anhydrous salts. Okay. What should have happened is you should have got a decrease in mass as we lost water, and it's that decrease in mass that is proportional to the number of waters on each one of your molecules of your hydrated salt. To prove that we've driven off all of the water, okay, we're going to heat our crucible for an additional 10 minutes to drive off any excess water that was left over upon the first heating of the hydrated salt. So we're going to take our crucible, our cover, and our salt back to the Bunsen burner. Once the second heating is completed, we'll put the cap back on our crucible, take it down from the clay triangle, and let it cool back down to room temperature. Once the crucible has come to room temperature, we can again find its mass. And what we're hoping to see is that the mass will not change between the second heating and the first heating. Right. No mass change suggests that we've driven off all of the water. And we are done with the experiment. If you see that there is a change in mass greater than 10 milligrams, so 0.01 grams, between the second heating and the first heating, you'll want to heat the experiment up a third time to drive off all water. If your numbers are within 10 milligrams of each other, you're done with the experiment. You can put the anhydrous salt into the waste container by scraping it out of the crucible. And you can work on the calculations to determine the number of water molecules on each molecule of your hydrated salt.